The PMP has been around for a really long time in the project management profession, and a lot of professionals wonder whether or not they should get it and if it's worth it. I think there's something like over a million certified PMPs. And so this question still comes up today. So today I want to walk through a practical guide to help you consider whether or not it's worth it. So first off, as I mentioned, many professionals wonder if it's worth the time, the cost, and the effort. Today I'm going to sort of break down what it is, why it matters, and some decision criteria to think through whether or not it makes sense for you. And by the end, hopefully you'll have a clear sense of if it makes sense and when it makes sense in your career to get the certification. So let's start with what is it? And it's a project management professional offered by PMI, which is considered sort of the global expert in project management. And by the way, they have several other certifications. I list them later, but PMP is the main one that the project management professionals wind up getting. It is recognized globally as a leading credential. A lot of job offers will see postings will ask for it as a requirement for PMs because it validates the knowledge of project management principles. There's a project management book of knowledge, or the PMBOK, which is considered the industry sort of Bible, if you will, on all things project management in the different categories, risk management, schedule, and so on. It does require a bit of work to get the certification. So there's professional development units, which is time spent in the field, in training, in classes, and things like that, as well as a minimum set of hours doing the work and then passing the exam, which covers various things from people and processes and so on. So that's the PMP. There's a few benefits to getting the PMP. First is credibility. As I mentioned, it's globally recognized, and so there's a distinction that when you have this certification, you understand the project management principles. There are some studies that suggest that PMPs do get paid higher because of this credential. As I mentioned, it's globally recognized, so every company on the planet that has project management is probably aware of this certification, which does help to open some doors. Networking access, there's all sorts of PMI networks and websites and materials available to people. There's local chapters. I served on the board of directors of my local chapter for a long time. It does provide a confidence boost, right? Because it sort of gives you that credibility in your workplace, and it provides a structured thinking so that as you talk to any other PMP along the planet, you're talking in the same language. Again, using that PMBOK. So there's a few benefits to think about. Let's talk about the pros and cons. So the pros I've already sort of mentioned, which is globally recognized, earning potential, and so on. It is a resume differentiation. So if you're applying for a PM role and your competition are people who don't have the certification, you might have a slight edge. Something that to think about in terms of trade-offs is it does require a bit of time to study. The exam does cost a bit of money, and if you're not in the workforce and you don't have a company that can reimburse you, then it's out of pocket. And you do have to renew every few years, as well as, and this is the point in the bottom, not only do you have to renew, but you have to maintain the certification by contributing PDUs. So either making presentations or attending trainings or conferences or things like that. It might be a little too formal for some, especially now with Agile coming out, although I have a different presentation that suggests that they're complementary and not contradictory, and so we can talk about that at a different time. And some of the experience may be hard for early career PMs. And I'll talk about there's other certifications that you can get, such as the CAPM, which is sort of more of an entry level certification. So just something to think about as you weigh the pros and cons. Now, the timing matters too. So when should you get your PMP? The best time, as I mentioned, because of the experience requirement, is after you've managed some projects, you understand some of the key components of a project, schedule management and budget management and resource management. If you're transitioning into a PM career, probably makes sense to get some of that experience first by shadowing a PM or you're sort of watching, being part of a PMO, things like that. If you're a mid-career PM, it could make sense to do it, right? Because it may unlock some of the more senior roles. And by the way, there's also a program management certification, the PGMP, which is sort of the step up. There's a lot of companies that do value PMI and PMP, so it probably makes sense in those scenarios to get it so that you're on par with those expectations. And especially if you're a contractor or you're trying to get business or work for other companies, it provides some credibility that you know what you're talking about. A couple things to consider if you're want to get the PMP. First is your industry. There's some industries that value it much higher than others. So construction, engineering type things. Maybe some of the more startups don't necessarily value it. And I'll tell you, with Agile coming out in the last decade, there was sort of a shift away from PM. Even PMI has a whole bunch of Agile certifications. And again, I don't think it's an or conversation. I think it's an and conversation. But I think as Agile came up, I think the sort of the PMP lure seems to have decreased a little bit. Career goals. This might help you with your next promotion or your next role, that it demonstrates that you're learning and growing in your career and that you have this certification. Your learning style matters. If you don't want sort of a structured study and memorization, you don't miss your school days, then maybe this doesn't make sense. I talked about the budget, that there is cost. A lot of the materials you can find online, so I don't know that there's material cost, but there's cost to both money as well as time. And then, as I mentioned, alternative paths. The CAPM is the entry level one. There's other certifications like Agile, and maybe there's leadership development programs. So just lots of things to consider as you're weighing whether or not this makes sense. Other things, as I mentioned, there's other certifications. The CAPM is the beginners. So generally people right out of college or who are entering the field, this is what I recommend to them because it's a good sort of starter level. PMI was late to the game after Scaled Agile came out, but so in the last few years they've come out with their own Agile certifications. I don't think they're as good as Scaled Agile, to be honest. I also have my Scaled Agile certification. The UK and government has a Prince 2 model that's been out for decades. Scrum Master is an Agile one as well, the Certified Scrum Master. And then I talked about the PGMP, the Program Management Professional. So just other ones to think about. But if you're just starting out and you're interested in sort of the base certification, I think the PMP is the right way to go. Now, if you've decided you want to do it and you want to take the test, it does take a few months, and there's study guides out there. If you're part of a local PMI chapter, there's usually study groups, and as I mentioned, there's a ton of materials out there. I talked about the PMBOK, which is the primary document that PMI uses, and it's actually organized really well. Every chapter is sort of a section of project management principles, finance management, schedule management, and so on. And I talked about there's lots of community forums, there's YouTube videos, podcasts, things like that. There's also a lot of practice exams that you can take, and that'll give you a sense of if you're ready or not. And as I mentioned, there's local PMI chapters all over the world, which not only does it build your network, but it's people, like-minded people, some of which have taken the test, their study groups, and so I definitely recommend joining a local PMI chapter. So, thinking about whether you should do it or not, I think about it sort of in three ways. If you have the experience, you want the leadership role, you're working in a company that values structure and values a certification, then I say you should get it. If you're early in your career and you're not really sure if you want to do it, then it probably makes sense to wait. And then if you're in an area that focuses on Agile, maybe doesn't value project management as much, maybe is more technical, then it probably makes sense to skip given all the costs and the time that it takes. There's lots of other considerations, but at a high level, this is how I would think about it. So some closing thoughts. Look, the PMP is not a career amplifier, or sorry, it's not a magic wand. It's a career amplifier. It's meant to supplement. I will tell you, I've got my PMP about 20 years ago. I've managed dozens of projects, And just having the certification isn't sufficient. You really have to have the right level of experience and skill set. So to me, the certification is knowledge, right? It's sort of the foundation of, can you explain this? When I say a RAID log, do you know what I'm talking about? But that doesn't necessarily mean you're a great PM, because that gets down to skills and competencies. And I have a separate presentation on what I think those should be. But it really is a common framework for thinking about project management. And as I mentioned, it matters when combined with experience and results. So if you get the certification, I'm saying it's not sufficient. You need to sort of continue to build your skills to complement the certification. And whether you get it now or later, investing in learning about our profession is probably the best way to go. So hopefully this is helpful. I'm really curious about if you wind up taking the test, if this is valuable, any other tips or tricks that you have for others. And thanks for watching the video.